Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome back to another episode of Niall Gardens, and today I'm going to be sharing with you some pretty major changes that have happened around here, and I think you're going to find them pretty shocking. I know I did when it happened, and I'm going to be talking to you about my plans for 2023. You cannot beat getting even just a little bit of time in the garden at this time of year particularly, and particularly in Ireland where a lot of the time in winter it's a little bit cold and a little bit grey. So it's quite nice to spend some time with you, and let's have a little bit of a catch up about what's been happening here in the garden, because a lot has been happening behind the scenes, and also talk about what's coming up in 2023. Despite the challenges that I had to deal with in 2022, and there were a few, 2022 was also a really brilliant year. On the channel, I got a whole load of brilliant YouTubers to join me while we talked about great seeds that you can sow so that you can bring lovely flowers into your garden. It was so nice to welcome all of these different people onto the channel, because that's the thing, gardening doesn't have to be a solo activity. It can be a really nice thing to bring a community together, and there is a lovely online community. In the spring, I went to visit my good friend Liz Zorab. I spent lots of time on her land, working with her. We went to the Malvern Spring Show and visited that. It was amazing to get to see around the place, and also to get to interview one of the garden designers that created really a fantastic garden. I got to meet Hugh Richards, and then of course later in the year, I won the Alan Titchmarsh New Talent of the Year award because I'm part of the Garden Media Guild in the UK. It was an action-packed year, and it really has been super. 2022 was a really difficult year for me with the veg garden, partly because I just got so busy. For the last couple of years, my job has meant that I have been working very, very little, and it meant that I could dedicate a huge amount of time to this channel and building it up. However, I would say middle of spring in 2022, my work started to get busier again, and it meant that I started to really have to juggle. And one of the things that slightly fell by the wayside was proper maintenance of the veg garden. I found that really difficult. So what I've been doing over the last couple of weeks is working away to get the beds cleared, the grass cut down. I've spoken before about how the grass is going to be going over the next couple of months, and really trying to wrestle this space back into a space that I want it to be going forward for 2023. One of the great things about having your own YouTube channel is that you can take it in whatever direction you want, whenever you want. And I love giving you loads of inspiration and sharing a bit of myself and all of my garden with you. But I also get really good feedback when I create quite dedicated, focused how-tos and tutorials. Well, I have already started work on a dedicated series that's going to run through this year with exactly that, really focused techniques that you can use in your garden, and I think you're going to love. Let's have a quick look at a couple of beds that I've cleared, and I'm going to tell you what I've got planned. When I created the veg garden, I created these 4 big L-shaped beds. The rest of the beds in the veg garden are just rectangular, but I thought it would be really nice to create what would feel like almost an enclosed space in the center of the veg garden. It would add a really nice form and a really nice place to sit. As good as they are as a growing space, they've never quite worked for me. So I have a plan to really transform them this year, and I'm going to share that with you now. When I went to visit Mayu in County Kerry back in the summer, she had 2 beds that she called fruit tree guilds. This was something that I'd never heard of, and I absolutely fell for the concept. So these 4 L-shaped beds here are going to become fruit tree guilds. The apple trees are on order, and what I'm going to do is create a dedicated series that's going to run through this year of how I'm going to set these up so that you can get inspiration to create your own. Stay tuned, that's going to be kicking off in the next few weeks, and I cannot wait to start getting these planted up and see whether I can make a fruit tree guild work as well. But let's also hop to just over here, because I promised you that I was going to show you a really, really huge change that you're going to find shocking. I guarantee you, you're going to find this shocking. It's quite a change, isn't it? Getting rid of a hedge. This section from really the far end of the veg garden, which is just off camera, all the way up to the potting shed up near the front of the house. This section is about 60 metres in itself, and it was an absolutely astronomical job to get this out. It wasn't a job that I did myself. I learned from bitter experience taking out the hedges at the back side of the garden that really I needed professional help. And that's what I got. I got a team of people in. It took about a week to remove this. And you can well see why. These were not just cypress hedges that took up a little bit of room. No, no, no. The 60-metre stretch is probably, I would say, easily at least 3 metres deep, and that's only from our boundary into our garden. Also, our neighbour has got about another 2 metres of extra land on their side. These, well, trees were just absolutely massive. So to get rid of them has just really opened up the garden. What it has done though, and it's not entirely positive, is it has left what is an absolute scar on the land. It's been a bit of a blot on the landscape for me personally, and what it's also done is it's really removed a lot of the privacy that we had in our back garden, which is something that I really cherished, I suppose, and treasured. And you know what? As cliche as it is, to make an omelette, you got to break some eggs, and sometimes big change has to be done in one go. That is exactly what I did here. This is a large garden, which means we have a lot of boundary, and I was never happy with the Leylandii cypress hedge that we had here. Yes, it gave us a lot of privacy, it sheltered the garden quite a lot, but it was far too big for me to manage alone, particularly when I've actually managed to measure the entire boundary of this garden, and it totals 350 metres. So you can imagine 350 metres of really tall 15, 16, 18 foot hedging. It was just going to be too big a job. So getting rid of this section is like a bit of a fresh start for this part of the garden. Over the next couple of weeks, I'm going to be getting a fresh hedge put in along this boundary. It's going to be really nice because as well as benefiting our garden, it's giving us more light, air, and space. It also benefits our neighbour as well because it's a shared boundary, and the way the light falls meant that that huge Leylandii hedge actually cast a lot of shade onto their side of the garden as well. So now they have more light and space, and we have more light and space. And there's one other negative about having this hedge removed that I know I can fix, but at the moment it is quite a negative. And believe it or not, it's the vegetable garden. And that's because when I designed it, I didn't actually intend on having so much extra free space. And now what's happened is my lovely, beautiful, symmetrical veg garden is completely asymmetric. And now it feels completely exposed on one side. However, what I am, I suppose, just stealing myself with is the knowledge that that's only going to be temporary. We're going to have a hedge in, then I've got this extra ground that I can spend this year working on. I think I'm going to put in some extra beds and bring this back into the form that I really want it to have. Now, it's not only here that this hedge has been removed, because there's even more that's gone. Let's go and have a look. Remember the secret garden? Well, I think it's fair to say that the secret garden is no longer a secret, or at least it certainly isn't on this side. It's now completely open to the laneway and everybody can see in. That's because the hedge that ran all the way down the side of our plot also ran all the way up here and all the way up to the lane. And that was what kept the secret garden so enclosed. Again, I can't say that I love the change. We've lost a lot of privacy. We've lost a lot of the structure and the feel of what made me fall for this garden in the first place. But again, change has to happen, and it's positive change, because as well as the new hedge that's going in that's going to look lovely, look how much garden I've got back. It's absolutely huge. Like here, I have regained easily another 8 to 10 feet that I can obviously fill with plants. And it's just a nice, positive change. One of the biggest things is that once we get a new hedge boundary in, I'm going to be able to keep it at a width and a height that I can manage myself. And that's a really big thing. If you own a garden of this size, and we have about an acre, you need to future-proof it. It's one thing having a garden that you can manage when you're in your 30s, like myself, but I want to be able to spend as much of my life here as possible. I don't want to have to give it up. So I'm going to try and put in the structures and really get it set up now in a future-proof way that means I can continue to enjoy it for as long as possible. So there you have it. You're pretty much caught up with everything that's happened in the garden recently. I'm sure you'll agree, big change is afoot. Let me know what you think. Write a comment down below because I'd love to hear from you as ever. And I'm really looking forward to sharing 2023 with you. And until next time, see you later.